to Eastern Afghanistan with one of your A teams. I was like, whoa. And indeed he did. He went out there with Glenn Thomas, great Special Forces detachment commander in his day, now retired SF colonel, my Hazara team leader over there. That's a different story. And Billy rucks up and goes to war once again for this great country with an ODA at the age of 72. Just phenomenal guy. And ever since those days, I've had the great pleasure now of calling Billy my close friend and comrade, and I've certainly came to love him dearly. So some thoughts on Billy. He was indeed, I believe, the purpose-built man. I think our good Father above saw a need, and he sent on earth this guy, Billy Raw, to do one thing only, and that was to be America's soldier. He was what he was born to be. He knew it. He spoke about it frequently. He didn't make any bones about it. It came at the expense of other things, without question. But he was indeed a purpose-built man. An elite soldier, a leader, passionate and driven by his mission. As cowboys of old might have said, Billy rode for the brand. He loved Army Special Forces. He loved the regiment. He took supreme pride in being an integral part of the Special Forces Brotherhood. It meant everything to him. He talked about it all the time. He was confidently single-minded. And that single-mindedness focused like a laser on his country's enemies. And he did that since 1948. Since 1948, Billy Waugh happily, not just willingly, happily stepped to the front to engage the enemies of his country and do what he did best with them. Like all of us, Billy had his flaws. I'm sure St. Peter has Billy knocking out more than a few push-ups and flutter kicks for some of his missteps, shall we say. But Billy was true to his essential self, and he contributed mightily to the security of the United States, as many, many fallen enemies could attest to. Damn, even toward the end, he kept trying to escape from his rehabilitation center that he spent his last days in, still trying to escape, scaring the hell out of the hospital staff. Wide open hospital gown, flapping in the breeze, trying to get out. That was Billy Waugh to the end. Lynn, I want to thank you for your love and support to Billy. We know it wasn't always easy. You are an incredible woman of great strength, resilience, and faith. To Leslie and all the family, thank you for your own sacrifices and your own contributions. We know that no soldier with a family gets to do this without your role, so thank you. It is really an honor to see you all here today. As all of us have either said or heard the phrase, I've got that t-shirt, and we've often used that to convey for personal first-hand experience of something good or bad. Well, I want to tell you that Lynn Waugh literally has the Billy Waugh t-shirt. At some point, Billy gave Lynn a t-shirt that said 1-0, and for those of you who aren't familiar with Vietnam-era MACV-SOG parlance, 1-0 is the team leader, guy in charge. And 1-0 of recon team, good deal. So that was the t-shirt Billy gave Lynn at some point in time, that she was the 1-0 of recon team of RT, good deal. It was a great deal, wasn't it, Lynn? And to give you all a truly meaningful insight to this great Special Forces lady, when Lynn called Miriam and me to let us know that Billy had gone to his final formation, she closed by saying, he's now riding Covey for us all. And I would say, who else but somebody who clearly and deeply gets it about this community could so completely and elegantly sum it all up better than that Billy's indeed up there riding Covey for us all. And for those who don't know what that means, there's plenty of folks here who can tell you. So for a great, great soldier for America, I do believe that he was America's soldier, has gone to God, and I truly believe he has. My good friend, our brother, riding Covey, indeed, but I'll miss him greatly. God rest you, Billy. Dea presto liber, strength and honor.
Thank you, General Mulholland. Please welcome General Brian Fenton, Commander, United States Special Operations Command.
Thanks. Thanks, Matt. Billy Waugh, a true legend in our special operations community. That's who we're talking about, and that's who we're remembering this morning. After hearing from Rick and Pat and General Mulholland, I think it's clear to everybody in this room that Billy's impact on our special operations community and our interagency communities endures today and will for generations to come. And I think it's been said a couple times, nowhere is that impact more profound than among our Army Special Operations community and our Army Green Berets. Lynn, thanks for letting us do this today. It's an honor and a privilege for all of us here at SOCOM and interagency teammates, past and the current 70,000+ teammates who all in some way, shape, or form will be and have been impacted by Billy. Thank you for letting us do this today. To Billy's family, daughter Leslie and stepson Mike and other family members here, thanks for joining us today. Thank you very much for being here with us and giving us a chance to stop for a moment in time and honor Billy. And to everyone else who joined us from near and far, thank you as well for giving us a gift of your time, because that is a gift. It's a very precious resource, and the fact that you would give it to Billy, who was in his final formation, his family, and all of us is a really important thing. So thank you for coming. As I think we're all very grateful for the chance to pause and remember one of our own special operations family members, a legend, a legacy, Billy Waugh. So recently I just finished a book. I have to do it via audible.com because I can't read, as Greg Vogel knows. It's called Victory Favors the Fearless. And it's a story of a professional boxer that learns to unlock a true potential. And he learns it from his trainer, who says over and over, victory favors the fearless. And it's about being fearless in adversity and fearless at any point in time. And I think if there's one phrase that I'll remember Billy for, it's just for that. It's for victory favoring the fearless. And I think that's pretty unanimous from the speakers you've heard today and from anybody who knows Billy and all of us who've been around him. He was fearless, and he was victorious. And that's how he served his nation each and every day for almost 5 decades. So this morning, I'd like to remember a little bit about that, his fearless spirit and how he was victorious. And victorious not only on behalf of his team and the elements that he served with in the interagency, but I'd suffice it to say for the 70,000+ men and women in SOCOM that have been in before and will come and are right now part of this team. He was fearless and victorious for all of us. And his impact was incredibly significant. So much so that beyond many other accolades, we had the privilege to honor Billy and induct him in our U.S. SOCOM Commando Hall of Honor in 2011. And that's on top of many other accolades to include Distinguished Member of the Special Forces Regiment and many, many other awards that he got over his time. Billy was indeed fearless in every sense, courageous, committed, innovative, and always victorious. And I'd like to talk a little bit about that through 3 eras of Billy's incredible life. First, his service in uniform as a Green Beret, then his service with the CIA, and then his service, as Pat Roberson mentioned, investing in our next generation of Green Berets, as he did so generously when he would go to the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare and School. So his time in uniform, his first era. Billy's 24 years of serving in our Army began in 1948, just 6 months after his 18th birthday. And if you trace Billy's career, you'll trace the birth and the rise of our Army Special Forces. It seems like Billy was there at every historic step. When he donned his Green Beret in 1954, that was barely 2 short years after the Army's very first Special Forces unit, the 10th Special Forces Group, was activated in Bad Tolz, Germany. Billy was right there. When Green Berets were later called upon to deploy into Southeast Asia, under the voice of President John F. Kennedy, Billy was there too. And he spent an unbelievable 7.5 years in that region, and most of it in Vietnam, including, as you've heard and can read, as part of the legendary MACV SOG. And those were fearless years for Billy. 8 Purple Hearts prove that. And his courage inspired anybody and everyone around him. And as you heard from Pat Roberson, during some battles in Vietnam, and during a time when Billy's life was miraculously saved, and he said that himself a couple times, by then Captain, now Medal of Honor winner, Colonel Paris Davis. But for his heroic actions, Billy was awarded the Silver Star that night, one of our nation's highest battlefield honors. And it was mentioned by Pat, and you can read in any number of publications, Billy's life was saved by his team leader, Paris Davis, who was just awarded the Medal of Honor, our nation's highest distinction. And during an opportunity I had to chat with Billy, I did what any former detachment commander, SF team leader would do. I said, tell me a little bit about Paris Davis. Tell me about your team leader. And I was teasing him a little bit because if you're familiar with our community, team sergeants are tough, and they treat you rough, and they want you to grow up right. And if not, they're going to throw you out of the team room, and all your shit will be out in the hallway in a New York 2nd. And I said, tell me about Paris. Tell me about how you had to square him away and how you had to get him straight so he could win the Medal of Honor. And Lynn will remember this. Billy looked at me and said, Paris D. That's what he called Paris Davis. He goes, General, I ain't telling you shit. I love that man. Everything I know about him is going to stay right here. And I said, come on, Billy, give me something, just a little something. He says, General, you hard of hearing? I'm not telling you shit. It's right here. But what you could tell, he loved that guy. And Paris loves him too. And Billy's fearlessness infected his teammates and infected all of us. And you could see it even when Green Berets first began experimenting with a novel parachuting technique called Halo in the jungles of Vietnam. Who raised their hand to take part? Billy Waugh. Fearless Billy Waugh. He was a pioneer and a pathfinder for a technique that marks our elite special operations even today. And Billy was right there. Billy was fearless, and victory favors the fearless. He carried that into his second era, his time with the CIA, as Rick and many others have talked about. He brought that fearless spirit from the jungles of Vietnam to a new set of challenges in the desert of North Africa and elsewhere around the world. And for 25 years, he undertook some of the most important missions in CIA and our nation's history. And Rick shared a bit of that this morning, and he's got a lot more that he'll probably keep right up here, just like Billy did about Paris Davis. And Billy mentioned that he traded in his rifle for a 35 millimeter camera, a big old monstrosity. I think the truth is Billy never traded in his weapon. He just carried them both, the camera and the weapon, as he brought up those stairs, just added it to his arsenal. And when the CIA needed a fearless, battle-hardened patriot, they found Billy Waugh. In almost a decade before the tragic events of 9/11, as was mentioned by Rick and many others, Billy was tracking and surveilling Osama bin Laden. He also tracked down Carlos the Jackal. And he was known, as was discussed, for his unconventional reconnaissance techniques. Anybody who jogs through the streets of Khartoum at 3 a.m. to accomplish the mission, pretty fearless in every sense. But of course, victory favors the fearless. Then in the first few months after the tragedy of 9/11, our nation, as it mounted its response, there's Billy, as Rick and General Mulholland mentioned, ready to be fearless again and victorious for his nation. At the tender, as General Mulholland mentioned, age of 72. And beyond wanted, he was there. And he ended his career in many ways back where he started, serving with Green Berets on the battlefield in Afghanistan. Kind of serendipity. But again, victory favors the fearless. And that leads to my last point of his eras, Billy's life of investing in the future, those to come, those he could inspire to continue to carry out that kind of work. And as Pat Roberson mentioned, that's probably Billy's most enduring impact, what you leave for those who are coming after you. Investing in the future, creating new legacies, new Billy Wa's out there, specifically for our Green Berets. And you better believe that only a guy like Billy could hold an audience like this in a room at Fort Bragg, now Fort Liberty, with Special Forces wannabes in rapt attention, especially in the age of Twizzler and Facelift and Fumbler and Spacebook, and the attention span of about 8 seconds. Billy Wa would have people, their phones would not only be down under their seat, they'd be stepping on them to crush them, because they didn't want them to be ringing while he was telling them stories and teaching them how to be phenomenal leaders in the field of combat. Again, only a fearless spirit like Billy Wa could capture that attention and do what he did, and he did it masterfully. He might have been fearless, but he was also generous with his immense amount of time that he invested in all of us and the legacy that he continues to leave in our special operations and intelligence community. And he was always thinking about the troops. We had a chance to visit with Lynn and Billy just recently. First thing he said when a couple of us walked in the room was, "Are you taking care of the men and women?" And that's the last thing he said as we walked out, because that was always on his mind. He loved them. He loved each and every one of you in this room, even if he didn't know you, and if he knew you, he loved you fearlessly. And he cared deeply for this nation. But even after he stopped those eras and was in his final location here in Tampa and was still with us, he's continued to be fearless. I think General Mulholland talked about, or Rick talked about, his recon skills. As we walked in, we started to have a conversation, and I said, "Billy, you look really fit. Why don't you come back and let's go get back in with our troops. Let's go jump out of some planes. Let's go riding around Tampa." Lynn said, "Don't say that. He'll do it." I said, "What do you mean?" She said, "When we came in here this first night, and Billy was in the wheelchair, we're pushing him down the hallway, and his head's going like this." And she's like, "What's he looking for?" She said, "He was looking for an escape route." So she said, "I went home that night, and as I was just getting into bed, I get a phone call. It's Billy." He's like, "Lynn, come get me. Door number 2 in the back dock. I can be there in 10 minutes. She said, "Billy, go back to bed. I'm not coming to get you." He goes, "I'll call you tomorrow." He was still getting around that hospital trying to visit folks. Now, in reality, that was a cover for action. That was Billy looking for escape routes and other places for him to be able to get to. He was always a recon man. He'd surveyed the whole place. I walked in, I was expecting to get a perspective sketch with a north-seeking arrow and some little routes going to and fro. And then there'd be a little stick figure of Billy, and it would be outside that location. He even briefed us on it. So I'll close with a final thought here. Billy concluded his autobiography with a dedication. And if you've read it or you remember it, it went like this: "To the Special Forces and the fine young men who've been killed in action. You've been in my life for so long, I'll work at that job until I join you." So Billy, you did it, and so much more. We all know you lived and served fearlessly, and man, were you victorious. May God bless Billy Wa. De Presso Liber.
Thank you, General Fenton. Please welcome Chaplain Vincent Garcia, 1st Special Forces Command, for a reading of Psalm 91.
Psalm 91, a warrior psalm. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. For he will deliver you from the snare of the fowler and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his pinions, and under his wings you will find refuge. His faithfulness is a shield and buckler. You will not fear the terror of the night, nor the arrow that flies by day, nor the pestilence that stalks in darkness, nor the destruction that wastes at noonday. 1,000 may fall at your side, 10,000 at your right hand, but it will not come near you. You will only look with your eyes and see the recompense of the wicked. Because you have made the Lord your dwelling place, the Most High, who is my refuge, no evil shall be allowed to befall you, no plague come near your tent. For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. On their hands they will bear you up, lest you strike your foot against a stone. You will tread on the lion and the adder, the young lion and the serpent you will trample underfoot. Because he holds fast to me in love, I will deliver him. I will protect him because he knows my name. When he comes to me, I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will rescue him and honor him. With long life, I will satisfy him and show him my salvation. Thanks be to God.
Thank you, Chaplain Garcia, and thank you, Mr. Elwell, for that beautiful rendition of Amazing Grace. Ladies and gentlemen, we ask that you please stand for the rendering of military honors and remain standing for the playing of the Ballad of the Green Berets.